Developing right now on Morning News Now, trade war turmoil. This morning, the Trump administration firing back against a federal ruling that blocks most of the president's tariffs. Meanwhile, VP Vance making a show of White House support for Bitcoin at a conference in Las Vegas.
And I'm here today to say loud and clear, with President Trump, crypto finally has a champion and an ally in the White House.
Now, critics questioning the president's ties to digital currency. Plus, Elon Musk officially out of government service one day after criticizing President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill. We have team coverage. Also developing an expanding manhunt for an escaped killer. This morning, authorities challenged by tough terrain as they search for an ex-police chief dubbed the Devil in the Ozarks, serving time for rape and murder. And in Louisiana, 2 escaped inmates still on the run. We'll bring you the latest. Plus, drama in court as lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs move for a mistrial over allegations of misconduct in the hip-hop mogul's federal sex trafficking case. And lights, camera, AI might look like a real Hollywood production. But this that you're looking at, it was generated entirely by artificial intelligence. More on the experiment that's giving us a sneak peek at the power and the limitations of AI technology.
Certainly production crews paying attention to that. It's a huge issue in Hollywood right now. We'll delve into it with Joanna Stern.
So many industries really could end up being impacted.
Good to have you with us this morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for being here. We begin our show this morning with that new court ruling that's hitting the pause button on President Trump's economic agenda. Last night, a 3-judge panel on the U.S. Court of International Trade struck down President Trump's trade tariffs and ordered the administration to stop collecting them.
The court said Mr. Trump exceeded his authority to impose sweeping global tariffs. The president implemented those tariffs under the decades-old International Emergency Economic Powers Act. But the court says that law has limits. In response, the White House is promising to appeal the ruling. A spokesman said in part that it's not for unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency. Hours before the ruling, the president was asked by a reporter about a new term used on Wall Street called the taco trade. Taco is an acronym which investors say stands for Trump always chickens out. The term inspired by his repeated retreats on tariffs after hiking them. Well, here's how he responded.
You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country. And because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff, and they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. You call that chickening out? It's called negotiation.
Let's bring in Investopedia's Caleb Silver for more on this court ruling on President Trump's trade tariffs. Caleb, great to have you with us. Good morning. So just walk us through, how big a deal is this, and tell us how the financial world's reacting.
Well, for financial markets, especially stock market, the U.S. futures are climbing higher and have been on this news. The question is, how long will this last and what happens next? There are potentially other methods that the White House can use to pass some of these tariffs. But right now, that court did block those 10% cross-the-board tariffs that the United States has put on about 150 trading partners. It gave them 10 days to remove those. So right now, you see markets reacting. And as you might expect, especially with some of the sectors that were hit the hardest, that are acting going to trade higher when the market opens. That said, this is not over by any means, and we'll see how the White House responds. They've appealed the ruling immediately, and there are other areas of trade acts that they could explore to use to implement some of these tariffs on some countries.
And we'll note the judges that made this ruling. You had a Reagan appointee, a Trump appointee, and Obama appointee there. I guess a lot of businesses already made orders with these higher tariffs or didn't order things because of the higher tariffs. So that begs the question, how quickly will we see the impact of this ruling? I mean, how quickly could prices perhaps start to level out with the inventory then starting to rebound?
Yeah, it depends on the product and on the inventory. The long cycle orders, the machines, the industrial machinery, the medical equipment that comes in from China or definitely from the European Union, that takes a lot longer. Those are longer lead times. Those supply chains have been disrupted. The quick turnaround type products might not be affected much by this at all. And a lot of companies have used other ways to get around tariffs in the last couple of months as there's been so much confusion about whether or not there will actually be tariffs. So companies have been dancing around headline news news regarding tariffs since this began on so-called Liberation Day. They're probably going to do that some more, and this could go all the way to the Supreme Court. So I think companies know this is not over by any means. The Trump administration is definitely going to appeal this, but we did see not only states' attorneys generals who brought this lawsuit to the International Trade Court that made them put a pause on these tariffs, but we know there's other plaintiffs as well, including businesses that have brought lawsuits against the Trump administration regarding these tariffs. Not over by any means, just the latest headline in a lot of headlines that have brought the markets back and forth on this news.
Caleb, also let's talk more about this term here, acronym taco trade. Trump always chickens out. Tell us a little bit more about what that phrase means to investors and traders, what it's been looking like in the market.
Yeah, well, Wall Street loves to come up with creative expressions to put a handle on what's going on lately. And as you've noticed, and we've been talking the last couple of months, the stock market has been very headline driven. When we heard about the tariffs on so-called Liberation Day, of course, markets sank. We saw a 19% decline in the S&P 500, but there's been so much back and forth, whether those tariffs have been reduced to 10% or whether there's been a deal with the UK. So this is just another one that I believe this comes out of the Goldman Sachs trading floor that says you can always bet on the fact that by Wednesday, the president's going to change his mind on tariffs and markets are going to go higher. That's why we've seen so much volatility in the stock market. But I wouldn't want to be the reporter that asked the president about that question yesterday. He didn't like that one bit.
Yeah, no surprise. He didn't like that at all. Another headline coming out of the White House, Caleb, I wanted to ask you about is Elon Musk now really officially leaving behind his role heading Doge in the federal government, moving back to focus on his businesses. The fact that he's doing that he's going to focus full time on these companies that he has built over the past several years. How does Wall Street feel about that? Is Wall Street welcoming seeing him return to that role?
Yeah, the Tesla faithful are, and the Tesla faithful have been with and behind Elon Musk for the past decade or so, and they've enjoyed very handsome returns in that stock by doing so. So that's one of the areas that he's going to put more focus on. But we know he has other ambitions beyond Tesla, which is now a pretty mature company. He's got Starlink, where he's trying to put satellite internet around the world. He's got Neuralink, where he's trying to use AI and push those efforts forward, and a few other projects, including a mission to Mars. So I think Wall Street, especially Tesla investors, know what this means for the Tesla stock. He said he'll be there for the next several years at least. As for the other companies, those investors are probably pretty happy to see the focus return to business where Elon Musk has excelled in the past.
Caleb Silver, you're going to stick with us as we talk through lots going on this morning, but thanks so much. We'll be right back with you.
And while the fight over tariffs goes on, the Trump administration is using its bully pulpit to shine a light on cryptocurrency. Vice President Vance took part in a Bitcoin conference yesterday in Las Vegas. He says the digital currency could help everyday Americans, even though less than 1 in 5 people have ever invested in it. Critics are raising ethical concerns about the White House's push for crypto. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake takes a closer look.
Vice President Vance at a Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, touting the administration's all-in attitude on cryptocurrency.
And I'm here today to say loud and clear, with President Trump, crypto finally has a champion and an ally in the White House.
The vice president pushing a hands-off approach to the growing field of digital decentralized finance.
We reject the Biden administration's legacy of death by 1,000 enforcement actions. We reject regulators.
Overall, just 17% of Americans say they have ever invested in, traded, or used a cryptocurrency. But the presence of the VP in Vegas seen here as a sign of the movement's ascendancy.
For me, Bitcoin's always been about freedom. So the current administration obviously cares a lot about that.
It all comes the day after Trump Media, the Truth Social parent company of which the president is indirectly the largest shareholder through a revocable trust, announced it was acquiring $2.5 billion in Bitcoin. And after the president attended a dinner for the largest investors in a Trump meme coin, a separate digital novelty product whose trades generate revenue for Trump businesses. That dinner blasted by Democrats.
Donald Trump is using the presidency of the United States to make himself richer through crypto. And he's doing it right out there in plain sight.
The president recently pressed by NBC's Kristen Welker.
What do you say to those who argue that when they hear that, they worry you're profiting from the presidency?
I'm not profiting from anything. All I'm doing is, I started this long before the election. I want crypto. I think crypto is important because if we don't do it, China's going to. And it's new. It's very popular.
That was Garrett Hake reporting. The White House says President Trump attended that crypto dinner in his personal, not official capacity, and that his assets are in a trust controlled by his son. So let's continue this conversation, bring back Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver, who is actually in Las Vegas attending that Bitcoin conference, so he knows it quite well. There's the sphere over his shoulder. You can see Caleb will be performing there tonight. As we just heard in Garrett's piece, it's only 17% of Americans who say they've ever traded in, invested in, used a cryptocurrency. We've also seen crypto enforcement really being scrapped by the Trump administration in a number of ways. So explain to us, first of all, just why a majority of people are not on board when it comes to this digital currency.
I think it's a lack of trust. And even though Bitcoin has been around for now about 14 or 15 years, it's kind of a mature crypto asset. People have had a lack of trust with cryptocurrency in general. They've heard that it's been involved with illicit activities. They've heard that it can prices can fall out of the sky, and they can in some cases. It's a very volatile asset, and it's not backed by anything like gold or the U.S. dollar. And that's one of the things that makes it so attractive to people that have been buying cryptocurrency and Bitcoin for so many years. But we know that this administration is very behind the crypto movement. You say 17% of Americans. There's 50 million people out there that have exchanged or bought it in some capacity at some point in time, and a lot of them voted for the president. In fact, the vice president was here yesterday. One of the first things he said to the crowd of about 7,000 or 8,000 people in the auditorium was, "Thank you for helping us get elected." They know that the crypto investing group is very much behind them and has been supporting them. And he said, not only did you help us get here, but you have to help us change laws on a local level to deregulate or make the regulation of cryptocurrency much easier and much more accessible. So this administration fully behind cryptocurrency. We know the president has his own meme coin, but there's the Trump family is also very involved in cryptocurrency and what we call decentralized finance. The Trump boys were here yesterday as well.
What do you think, Caleb, that means for the industry going forward to have the leader of the free world, the White House's family, so all in, so openly on this?
I think green lights, and you could feel the excitement here in Las Vegas. I'm at the Venetian where this conference is being held right now, and I've been to many of these, and this is about as exciting as it's been for this crowd in a long time. The president spoke at this very conference in Nashville last year. This year, he sent the vice president. So this is a very crypto-friendly crowd, and this is a very crowd that is very friendly to the Trump administration. They're selling MAGA gear here as well, a lot of merchandise with the president and Bitcoin and his own coin on it. So it's very much entwined here. As for the rest, what this means for the crypto universe, something very important happened yesterday. The Department of Labor struck down some language that was written during the Biden era, guiding people to be very cautious about putting cryptocurrency assets in their 401k. What does that mean? Next stop, 401ks will be probably accepting crypto, I would say, by the end of the year. So we see bigger institutional adoption, and we see much more legal and ease of frameworks, regulatory frameworks. And you should get used to this thing called the Genius Act, which the vice president was touting. They wanted to establish rules and a framework around what we call stable coins to tie potentially the U.S. dollar digital currency to a stable coin. This is just the beginning of the architecture to make this a much broader ecosystem for people to invest in and trade with.
You mentioned this is a universe, so we've got billions of dollars being moved around in the crypto world. Just help us understand how big of a player is the Trump family in this industry right now?
They're big and getting bigger. So in terms of Bitcoin, well, we heard yesterday that the Trump organization did buy or approved the purchase of $2.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still about a $2 trillion asset. It's not like they're going to be the biggest, but they're very involved across the board, and the president owns 80% of that media company indirectly through the trust. So we know they're very involved. We know his sons are running his companies. They're very involved as well. So you could say that they are all in on crypto, and the vice president was touting that as well yesterday, saying we are all in on this industry, and we will do whatever we can to open it up to everybody.
All right, Caleb Silver covering crypto, also opening act for Kenny Chesney at the Sphere.
Stop it.
Caleb, thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. Enjoy that. Well, it's now been 5 days since an ex-police chief convicted of rape and murder escaped from an Arkansas prison. Now, weather conditions and difficult terrain have made that manhunt much more challenging. It also comes as police continue their search for the remaining 2 inmates still on the run from that daring escape out of a New Orleans jail. NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar has more from Calico Rock, Arkansas.
Authorities say there are plenty of places to hide out here in the Ozark Mountains, spaces that are not only off the grid, but also beneath it. There are hundreds of caves out here that lead to these vast underground spaces, ideal really for a fugitive in hiding. But they also say that they have hundreds of law enforcement personnel from multiple agencies out on the ground here, working around the clock, deploying drones and dogs, scouring this vast and rugged terrain, looking for 56-year-old Grant Hardin. He, of course, is the former police chief turned convicted killer and rapist. He was convicted for a murder of a city worker, James Appleton, back in 2017. Officials say that Hardin shot him point blank in the face in broad daylight. DNA that they were able to get from him was then tied to an unsolved rape of a school teacher from back in 1997. Officials are warning the public that Hardin is considered extremely dangerous. They do believe that he is still in this immediate area. They have widened the perimeter, and they said that not only has the terrain been challenging, but also his prior experience as a law enforcement officer. Even though they were able to detect that he was missing from the jail facility within 30 minutes of his escape, they say the fact that it was raining that day and the following days really hindered their search efforts in finding him quickly. Back to you.
All right, Priya, thank you.
This morning, another former personal assistant of Sean Diddy Combs is expected to take the stand in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial. Comes after a dramatic day in court yesterday that saw a squabble over insinuations over evidence turn into a request for a mistrial by the defense. Combs' former stylist also testified in graphic detail about abuse that he said he witnessed between the former rapper and his ex-girlfriend, singer Cassie Ventura. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas has been inside the courtroom.
Celebrity stylist Deontay Nash, who worked with Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura, describing hearing Combs threaten Ventura's music career if she didn't behave how he expected, testifying that he heard Combs say that he was going to release sex videos on the internet, he was going to release them on schedule, and that he was going to first start by sending them to her parents' job to get them fired. He told the court that he tried to reassure Ventura that Combs wouldn't release the tapes because he was also on them. He says Ventura responded Combs wouldn't be on the video because he was filming her with other men. Later, Nash testifying to seeing Combs assault Ventura until her head hit a bed frame and began bleeding, saying that he tried to jump on Combs's back to stop him but was thrown off. Prosecutors showing this picture of a gash above her left eye when Ventura testified about this incident recently. During cross-examination, Combs' lawyers pointing to Nash's actions after that alleged incident, saying, quote, after the cut, the violence, you invited him and Cassie to come with you to a Halloween function? Nash answering, correct. An explosive moment when Combs' defense team called for a mistrial, prompting a heated showdown with New York prosecutors. It happened during testimony about an incident in December 2011 involving musician Kid Cudi, who was also dating Ventura. The witness, a Los Angeles firefighter and arson expert, saying that he was called to Kid Cudi's home and found a Molotov cocktail in his car, saying that he believed it to be a targeted crime. Prosecutors releasing these new photos of the damage. The arson investigator testifying it was determined that someone took the bottle, put gas inside, put cloth in it, and cut the vehicle and dropped the bottle inside. Arson is among the list of acts in the racketeering conspiracy charge against Combs. Combs has denied all the accusations against him. He told the court that fingerprint evidence from the scene was destroyed. Combs' team saying that the prosecutors asked questions insinuating that Combs had something to do with destroying the evidence in the possession of the LAPD, telling the judge that, quote, there is no way to unring this bell. The judge telling jurors to disregard the portion of the testimony regarding the destruction of evidence, calling it irrelevant, but denying the mistrial request and allowing things to proceed. Chloe Malas, NBC News.
We have NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas here to break down this case for us. Danny, good morning. Thanks as always for being here. So let's start on that request by the defense for this mistrial that was denied. Was that a long shot, or are they seeing that as a big setback?
It was a long shot, but it was not a setback. Here's what I mean. As far as mistrials go, the judge was not likely to grant this. And candidly, I didn't really see grounds for a mistrial, but it wasn't a loss for the defense for a couple reasons. Number one, they preserved the issue for appeal. But number two, they actually got something out of it. I suspect the defense didn't even expect their mistrial motion to be granted. But what they did get was the judge excluded some evidence. So it was not a setback at all. They got something. This happens a lot in trial. You ask high, expecting that you'll get something in the middle, and that's exactly what happened.
Help us understand the arson investigator here. This was meant to support the racketeering charge, which includes arson, pointing to maybe a larger pattern of behavior. Was that accomplished here, do you think?
You're exactly right. The government, in proving racketeering, has to show at least 2 predicate crimes. They can show more. Among those predicate crimes that are listed in the law are arson, kidnapping, drug trafficking. So that's why you hear testimony about arson. But I have to stress, Diddy is charged not with racketeering, but actually racketeering conspiracy. So it's important to know that all they need to show for arson, what they don't need to show is that Diddy was there, that he participated in the arson, that he threw the Molotov cocktail, or that he was even present at the time of that particular crime. That's racketeering conspiracy. As long as he agreed to participate in this bad enterprise, that's enough.
Let's look ahead to what we might hear today. We're expecting to hear from a former personal assistant who says that she was sexually assaulted by Diddy. The prosecution is saying that this is related to all these charges: bribery, obstruction, trafficking, prostitution. Do we expect that the questioning may kind of go in the same direction that we heard here, where it's kind of like, okay, so all this was going on, but you still hung around?
Yes, exactly. And the defense has to do that. They have to explore whether it's Cassie Ventura, a former paramour, or an assistant. They have to explore with all of these witnesses, hey, this guy did all these horrible things, sometimes with you, and you chose not only to stay, but sometimes you left and came back in the case of his personal assistant. Now, the government has called an expert to say, hey, people in these violent situations and domestic violence situations often find it hard to leave. But the government probably wouldn't have called that expert if the government itself wasn't concerned about that avenue of cross-examination.
Danny Savalos, thank you very much.
Let's get to your morning news now forecast, starting with a live look outside our studio here at 30 Rock this morning. As you can maybe see, the overcast skies we've seen over the last few days still hovering over the Big Apple.
Yeah, it's a lot of rain on the ground. We trekked through this morning. Angie Lassman has her eye on all that and more. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Hope you brought your umbrella. We, of course, had some showers across the Northeast this morning. Those stretched into the Great Lakes, but we're really ramping things up across parts of the South and the Plains. Those are just some of the spots that we're going to see kind of the more active forecast here as we get through the day today, specifically with the heavy rain centered across the Southeast. Here's how it all plays out. You can see that working through the day today. To the east, we'll see this next system kind of bringing a little bit of rain across parts of the Midwest. And then as we get into tomorrow, much of that works across the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast. And then another kind of round of it, the one that's centered over parts of the Midwest today, will eventually arrive for the Mid-Atlantic. And we'll see the potential for some of these stronger storms there and south towards parts of the Southeast. So kind of a couple of busy days. By the time we get into Saturday, we finish out our work week and head into the first half of the weekend with rain returning for the Northeast. And specifically, we're most concerned about that heaviest rain centered across parts of northern New England. It doesn't look like crazy amounts of rain across the Southeast, but we could see some potential localized flooding from anywhere from 2 to 3 inches by the time we get through Saturday. And kind of the similar story across parts of the Ohio Valley and up into New England as we get through the first half of our weekend. When it comes to the severe weather today, a much smaller area of risk, but still it's not zero. So we're watching for 6 million people to have the potential to see some of that large hail, 2 inches or larger, and the wind gusts over 60 miles per hour. Tornado threat isn't zero. It's there. We could see a couple of those possible. And I'd specifically watch across parts of Texas, San Angelo, Waco included in that, in the metro areas of Jacksonville to Charleston to see the potential for that, guys. This will be something that we watch through the day today. And then as we look ahead to Friday, nicer conditions basically from the Midwest out west. It's those severe storms, though, that stay with us on the east.
Good for them.
Yeah, good for them.
That's the way to, that's the attitude.
Thanks,
Angie.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, destination elsewhere. New numbers show a significant slide in foreigners who are traveling to the U.S. More on the trend that could cost the tourism industry here billions of dollars.
Up first, though, after the break, controversy on campus as the White House announces it's revoking Chinese student visas. We'll be right back.
We're back now with the latest on the broadening fight between the Trump administration and colleges and universities. In a brief statement late Wednesday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the United States will, quote, aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields.
This morning, China said it strongly objects to the plan by the U.S., claiming it violates those students' rights and hurts their interests. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Ferrer, who joins us now from Beijing. Hey, Janice.
Janice, good to have you with us. So walk us through the Trump administration's plan here. Do we know how many students will be impacted by this?
Well, there are nearly 300,000 Chinese students in the U.S., so there's a ripple effect. It's not just universities losing revenue. This is the wider economy, restaurants, stores, rent, travel. The Department of Homeland Security is also reviewing criteria for all international student visas. This is an order that went out to embassies globally yesterday, and here at the embassy in Beijing, they were told to stop taking new appointments for student visas. So this is a huge blow and a sign that despite that ceasefire of sorts a couple of weeks ago on tariffs, relations between the U.S. and China could be unraveling.
Janice, we mentioned a little bit of this a moment ago, but tell us more on the formal response of the Chinese government here. And is there a sense that this is about keeping Chinese students away from working on potentially sensitive technology, specifically with some of what Joe mentioned? Or is it about cutting off a revenue stream for universities?
All things. Chinese officials were responding today that they've lodged a formal diplomatic protest, calling the move unreasonable and accusing the U.S. of targeting China. Students we've talked to are fearful, and it's worth noting that Xi Jinping's daughter went to Harvard. But national security concerns have lingered for years, and accusations that China's government is recruiting Chinese scientists trained in the U.S. or using them to commit espionage or intellectual property theft. But consider the timing of all of this. It's going to add a layer of confrontation to the trade war when just 2 weeks ago there was a ceasefire on tariffs, an agreement by both sides to talk. But now it is a far more complicated discussion.
Janice, I have to imagine other countries are taking note of this. I mean, how are some other places responding to this plan to start canceling student visas?
Well, when the Trump administration made the move on Harvard to limit the school's ability to enroll international students, several universities here in Asia, in Hong Kong and Singapore, said, hey, forget the U.S., come here, as well as this school in Australia.
All right. Janice, thank you very much. Well, in other overseas news, Russia appears ready to return to the negotiating table to talk about an end to the war in Ukraine. Yesterday, Russia's foreign minister proposed holding a second round of direct talks in Istanbul starting early next week.
Delegates from both countries met there earlier this month under pressure from President Trump to end the war, but those talks failed to reach a ceasefire deal. Well, now President Trump is ramping up his attacks on Russian President Vladimir Putin's latest actions in the war.
I'm very disappointed at what happened couple of nights now where people were killed in the middle of what you would call a negotiation. I'm very disappointed by that.
NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter joins us now from London with more on this. Molly, good morning. So what are the expectations for the second round of negotiations in Istanbul, and what demands is Russia making?
Hey, guys, good morning. Well, I think safe to say right now they're low, just given that Ukraine has not actually confirmed that June 2nd, which is, of course, Monday, works for them. So expectations are low. We did hear the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, say that Istanbul was his preference. He threw out June 2nd. And we also, you guys heard from Putin advisor Vladimir Medinsky. He heads the Russian negotiating team. And he said, we're ready to begin substantive discussions of each of the points of the package agreement on the future ceasefire. Well, the Ukrainians say they have sent Russia, the Russian negotiating team, their peace proposal, their memoranda. The Ukrainians say they have not received one back from Russia. And in order to commit to this next round of talks, they need to see what Russia's points are. It's also interesting to note, you guys, there's no evidence that Russia has changed any of its original proposals or original kind of requests, even before 2022, including NATO expansion, about Ukrainian neutrality, and now, of course, about those Russian-occupied regions in Ukraine. We actually did just hear, and I'm looking down at my phone right now, the head of the office of the president, one of Ukrainian President Zelensky's main advisors, Andriy Yermak, has just posted on social media. He says the Russians continue to lie about the so-called memorandum on a ceasefire. Everything Russia does only demonstrates its goal to prolong the war. Ukraine has been ready for a ceasefire. Our conditions are well known. So we know from the Zelensky side, they say that they're ready to meet. They're ready to meet the U.S. They're ready to meet Russia under any circumstances, but June 2nd is not confirmed yet.
Now, let's talk about the American side. President Trump has been very critical of Russian President Putin in recent days, warning that he was, quote, playing with fire for resisting these ceasefire talks. But Mr. Trump downplayed the likelihood of putting new sanctions on Russia in the Oval Office yesterday. Let's listen.
What stopped you from imposing new sanctions on Russia?
Only the fact that if I think I'm close to getting a deal, I don't want to screw it up by doing that. Let me tell you, I'm a lot tougher than the people you're talking about, but you have to know when to use that.
Molly, what's been the response from Russia to these comments from the president?
Well, it's worked in some ways, right? At least Russia's paying lip service to President Trump. It's gotten them back to the table. You heard from Lavrov yesterday, announcing or at least proposing this June 2nd date. So as far as President Trump's concerned, the appearance of an ongoing negotiation, of an ongoing ceasefire deal, is at least underway. There's no evidence that this is actually going to happen. There's no evidence that this is actually kind of in any way close to a deal, as President Trump said. You guys, he also said, we are going to find out soon if Putin is tapping us along or not. And if he is, we will respond a little bit differently. So he's laying it on pretty thick in the Oval Office. And it worked. It got Russia to respond. We also know, you guys, at least... we just heard, excuse me, I'm just looking down at my notes, because we did just hear from Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov this morning. There's been a lot of moving parts, that at this point there are no plans for Vladimir Putin to speak directly to President Trump anytime soon. That, of course, could change, too.
Molly, while all these conversations are happening, maybe happening, I mean, let's talk about what's going on the ground. The war is intensifying. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia has gathered 50,000 troops to the north. Tell us about this.
Yeah, this is in a region called Sumy, and it's right across the border from Kursk. You guys, Zelensky has shared this 50,000 number. We haven't independently verified this number. He said the Kremlin's strongest forces were currently on that front line in Kursk. It's in western Russia. And you see this video we've gotten from state emergency services, firefighters battling flames all night, overnight. And this morning, the Ukrainian military said 20 airstrikes in that area, including 38 guided bombs, 205 artillery attacks. So this region got absolutely hammered in the last 48 hours, but the war absolutely is continuing. We should keep our eyes on the ground, as well as anything that's happening in the negotiating sphere.
Molly, thank you very much. Well, fired federal workers now running for office.
Civil rights are under attack. I can't just say I want to see things change and not take the initiative to try to change it.
Their message to voters next. You're watching Morning News Now. As Elon Musk departs from Doge, many of the former employees who lost their jobs during his effort to shrink the government are still looking for work.
Well, now some of them are hoping to find their next gig by running for office, which might pose an unexpected challenge for Republicans at the local, state, or even federal level. NBC News national correspondent Yasmin Vasugian spoke to a few of them who are turning their frustration into action.
Fired up and ready to run.
I'm Erica Evans, and I'm running for Seattle City Attorney.
Former federal workers, some laid off, others exiting in protest, now running for office.
Our local government is the absolute first line of defense.
I think democracy is at stake right now.
Erica Evans and Shernice Mundell, just two amongst a sea of former federal workers who say running for office is how they can make the biggest impact now. The question becoming if the lines of laid-off federal workers could turn into a broader election battle, from local races all the way to Washington.
Civil rights are under attack, diversity, equity, and inclusion, reproductive rights, all that, becomes a local issue. Hi, thank you for being here.
Erica Evans was an assistant U.S. attorney for the Western District of Washington, a civil rights coordinator, her dream job.
That dream started to shift when some of the priorities and values of the Justice Department changed and no longer aligned with mine. And then I needed to make a change, and I needed to stand up and do something.
She quit after the election of President Trump, choosing to run for Seattle City Attorney.
There's this one.
Now walking the streets with groups like We Deliver Care to make a local impact.
You get elected city attorney. How do you change this?
We provide resources. People need housing, people need treatment, they need mobile medical care. Those are things that you're able to do at a city level.
To win, she'll have to get through a Democratic primary against at least 2 opponents, pushing for a smarter approach to crime and a safer, fairer Seattle. And then a Republican incumbent, Ann Davidson, who's pushed for more action against misdemeanor crime. But Evans is not alone.
I can't just say I want to see things change and not take the initiative to try to change it.
Shernice is an Air Force veteran at the Office of Personnel Management. She was promoted in November of 2024. But on February 13th of this year, she was one of thousands of civil servants cut by the Trump administration. She's now in limbo on unpaid leave after a court ordered some employees reinstated, and she's mulling a bid for Congress.
We're slowly losing rights every day.
Emerge, an organization that helps recruit and train Democratic women to run for office, says they're seeing a major surge of former civil servants.
This is the most that we have ever seen.
Ashanti Galar, the organization's president, says more than 200 people signed up or expressed interest in a boot camp they put together specifically for former federal workers, contributing to a 157% overall jump compared to this time last year. Another similar organization, Run for Something, tells us more than 800 current and former federal workers joined its call in March. And while Erica and Shernice know running for office is an uphill battle,
nothing is getting done.
We're in an unprecedented time.
They have the will to fight.
All right, thanks to Yasmin Vasugian for that report. Well, with some state and local primaries set to happen well ahead of next year's midterms, we could see some of these people taking local office in the coming months.
Coming up, a Hollywood-style movie made entirely with AI.
Yeah, we'll pull back the curtain on the controversial technology next on Morning News Now. We're back now with a look at the drop in the number of international tourists who are visiting the United States this year.
So a research note from Tourism Economics, which is part of Oxford Economics, says international arrivals to the U.S. are expected to fall about 9% this year. That drop is fueled by negative perceptions about recent changes to immigration policies here in America, pushing many tourists to look elsewhere. Add it all up, spending from foreign tourists expected to fall $8.5 billion this year compared to last year.
For more on this and Might Matters, let's bring in Katie Nastro. She's the spokesperson for Going. Katie, good morning. So immigration reform, as Joe just mentioned, part of the issue, but what else is behind the drop in international tourists coming here to the U.S.?
Yeah, look, Savannah, there isn't one singular reason why we're seeing a decrease in international inbound tourism, but rather a combination of factors, such as strained international relations due to tariffs, leaving people feeling unsure about the broader global economy moving forward, worrying perceptions based on reports of detentions at U.S. borders, a stronger dollar in recent years compared to specific economies, as well as, some general negative sentiment, specifically looking at places like Canada after some of the recent administration's remarks earlier in the year. You mix that all up, and it really is a recipe for less international travelers from key markets that we're seeing.
So tell us more about why this matters. I mean, we threw out that $8.5 billion. That could be the money lost in tourism dollars this year. I mean, how big of an impact would that have on the American economy?
Yeah, look, Joe, the U.S. Travel Association projections are stating that if this trend continues, we could see travel-related revenue down or cost us $21 billion. However, there is an asterisk there. If this trend continues, we still have another half of the year to get through, as well as 2 of our very busy seasons when it comes to travel. You have the summer, as well as the winter holidays. As well as you might find that with the dollar starting to weaken against other currencies, we could see people traveling more domestically this year. Preliminary Going data is showing, based off of travelers surveyed, that while there is a healthy amount of people that are traveling internationally, there is also an just about equally amount of people traveling domestically. So it could suggest that, people may shift their plans if they haven't booked any travel yet away from international travel and stay locally, and that could help make up that divide. could help.
Broader than that, Katie, like, is there kind of like this reciprocal issue at all, like this drop in visitors to the United States, maybe making it harder or more expensive for Americans who want to travel abroad?
Yeah, Savannah, that's a great question. And look, as we've seen the dollar depreciate in the last few sort of recent weeks and months, this could impact how many people do travel abroad because of the cost, as well as if more international travelers are looking at other areas outside of the U.S., Canadians more so looking at places like Mexico, that could have the impact of if American travelers are also looking at specific destinations that other travelers are also looking at, you could find a premium cost associated with that because it is busier. Europe tends to be one of the busiest regions that we see Americans want to travel to. And if Europeans from select markets are staying local, it could have the impact of not only just being busier in general, but coming again at that cost. Hotels and experiences could potentially rise in costs this year due to the fact there are so many more people.
Katie, thank you very much.
Let's get some more financial headlines this morning. JetBlue and United Airlines have announced a new partnership.
CNBC's Silvana Hanau joins us with that and other money news. Hey, Silvana.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Good morning. Yeah, this was announced just moments ago where United Airlines and JetBlue announcing a collaboration called Blue Sky, where JetBlue customers will earn frequent flyer miles on United and vice versa. It also includes reciprocal loyalty benefits like priority boarding and roomier seats for travelers with elite status. And here's the big one for the company. It will also allow United to return again to John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York as early as 2027. All right, Elon Musk says Tesla has been testing driverless Model Y cars in Austin, Texas, and plans to deliver the first vehicle in June. Now, in a post on X, Musk says a month ahead of schedule. He had previously said Tesla aimed to begin testing robotaxis by the end of June, and Bloomberg had reported Tesla would launch its robotaxi service on June 12th. And the United States remains a hotspot for the wealthy. A report from Henley & Partners and New World Wealth shows the U.S. accounts for more than a third of the world's millionaires and billionaires. Now, the country has more than 6 million liquid millionaires, or people with investable assets of more than $1 million. Now, there are now 867 American billionaires. Along with its own growth, the U.S. also benefits from overseas millionaires moving to America, guys.
Very interesting stuff. Thanks, Silvana.
All right, so could this be coming soon to a theater near you?
Joanna, please don't do this.
So that was a clip from a Wall Street Journal short film. It's titled My Robot and Me. For the most part, this looks and sounds like a suspenseful scene from a blockbuster thriller, right? A film that's made with a full production crew.
Yeah, and actors. But this film was actually fully created using artificial intelligence tools. Joanna Stern, she's a friend of the show. She was one of the producers, directors, and stars of the film.
And she's also an NBC News personal technology analyst and the senior personal technology columnist for the Wall Street Journal, who now getting in the movie business. Yeah. Joanna, good to have you with us. We're actually going to play a full clip of this AI movie under our conversation, so our viewers will see more of it. They just won't hear it all. But you say there are parts of the film that look totally real, other parts that are obviously artificial. Tell us why you decided to create and direct just a totally AI movie.
Yeah, well, I think you giving me the acting credit here is a lot. So thank you for that. Maybe my Oscar is somewhere close by. But look, we see a lot of these AI video models getting incredibly good very fast. Every week or so, one of these companies, whether it be Google with VO or Runway or one of these other startups, are announcing incredible progress. And so I wanted to challenge my producer, a longtime producer. His name is Gerard Cole. I've worked with him for a long time. And I wanted to say, all right, let's see what we can do with these things. Because what you tend to see on the internet with these are sort of these little viral clips, people trying to just have fun with them. Maybe you've seen the podcasting babies, maybe you've seen the Will Smith memes. So I said, let's see what we can really do with this. And so we were pretty impressed. We were able to put together a film. It really, I think, holds up story-wise. There's some humor in it. And yes, there's a lot of quirks, and maybe we can run some of those bloopers, but I don't look like myself. I mean, I look like 15 different versions of me. One scene I've got bad Botox, one scene I've got some sort of video game face. So a lot of progress that needs to be made, but gosh, like what if that progress comes? We've got a big question on our hands.
But in real life, she can pull a semi-truck, so that's extraordinary.
Yeah, that one right here doesn't look like you so much, but otherwise, some of them really
no,
did.
You guys don't know. Under here, it's just really, really jump-jacked. So yeah.
Joanna, for people who have been seeing these little clips online, or maybe this is the first time and it's just really sinking in, like this was all just kind of made by directing AI to do this. Walk us through like how you do it, and can anyone do it? And can people just start making these clips that obviously there could be much more damaging things, like it looks like somebody said something that they didn't actually say? Like, is this just something you go on the internet and do?
Yeah, so there's a lot of degrees of this. What we did here was quite complicated and quite technical. And that's because we made a 3-minute film with consistent characters. I mean, in every scene, yes, I look a little bit different, but the outfits are the same sort of look to me. The robot stays very consistent throughout the scenes. We have different sets. And so all of that was really very tough to do. That involved making images and imagery with other AI image generators, putting them into, we used Google VO and Runway, combining them, writing advanced prompts, doing a lot of work. That said, there are tools like Google VO, like Runway, that you can just go in, type in a few words, say, I'd like to see a news anchor, a man and woman at a desk, talking about a war in the Middle East. And that will spit back something pretty realistic now, especially with Google VO, which has audio and dialogue.
Yeah, we have like 30 seconds here, but I think it's important to ask this question. I mean, just after doing this, how much is Hollywood and the traditional ways of doing things in danger?
Look, Hollywood is grappling with this right now. You've seen lots of the biggest names in Hollywood, from actors to directors to cinematographers, speaking out, asking for the ethical use of some of these AI tools. Obviously, they feel the industry is in jeopardy, but also how is this stuff trained is a really big question, right? Was it using previous film work and works? But look, Hollywood is going to be disrupted. They're starting to work with these tools, just like we started to work with these tools here in journalism.
All right. Joanna Stern, great conversation, fascinating stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Great idea to do this. Thank you. Coming up, a little bug sparking a lot of joy.
When we come back, we're going to take you to South Carolina, where thousands of fireflies, they're putting on a dazzling display. This is Morning News Now. Finally this hour, a story that's sure to spark some nostalgia for some. Fireflies are one of nature's more mysterious marvels. There are more than 2,000 species of these insects, also known as lightning bugs, but only 3 types rally together every year to put on a show like no other. NBC News correspondent George Solis went to South Carolina to check it out.
If you've ever needed proof that good things come to those who wait, look no further.
Don't see anything down there?
Yeah. Just a few. Just a couple. Still a little early.
A carefully choreographed dance of twinkling twilight, reserved for those willing to just watch. Like an orchestra warming up, slow to start, but then crescendos into the night, illuminating the forest courtesy of nature's nightlight.
As a first time, that was spectacular.
The architects behind this soiree under the stars, fireflies that around this time each year create displays that draw thousands of visitors to Congaree National Park in South Carolina, where for about 8 days, the dark, damp, and swamp-like conditions are perfect for the phenomenon.
Neat, though, that they start, lighting here, lighting there, and then they start syncing up.
In addition to South Carolina, a firefly viewing event also occurs each year at the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. They're fireflies to some, lightning bugs to others, but are actually neither. They're beetles, one of 3 species in North America where the males seemingly flash to a beat to attract females down on the forest floor.
So we're doing this,
every 3/4 of a second, just on a very steady beat.
John Manchester is chief of visitor service at Congaree and has watched the fireflies for more than a decade.
Not a bad gig. Not a bad gig at all.
Some years more vibrant than others, and as we saw, not always easily captured on camera.
Does it compare seeing it on video or film as to experiencing it in real life? No. Photos, video are a great way to get the word out and share it with other people, but it doesn't compare to seeing it live and in person.
Fireflies.
You could say park officials captured lightning in a bottle when years ago they came up with a lottery for visitors to see the spectacle up close. In recent years, fireflies have seen declining numbers from things like light pollution to pesticide use.
What was this like before the lottery? It was crazy. In a good way. In a good way. I mean, people were coming out because they wanted to see the fireflies. After a few years, we did notice that the number of fireflies were dropping off a little bit.
Populations at Congaree are bouncing back, but there's still a strict no cell phone policy to keep light sources out. The exception are lights with red filters, which have proven to be the least disruptive.
There's nothing else out there like a firefly.
Bernie Conklin and Linda Work waited 6 years for this stroll down memory lane and were among the 1,200 winners out of 24,000 that entered the Firefly Lottery this year.
What is it about fireflies that you think is just so magical that you have to share this with everyone that you can?
I mean, who doesn't remember back to their childhood and summers with fireflies?
Right.
To be able to share that with our children, that's the magical part.
A rare radiance bonding generations.
It was the best part of my day.
Growing up with fireflies in the Northeast was special to me, so getting to do it down here, especially at a national park, which is something we really enjoy doing as a family, made it that much more special.
And sparking hopes of a brighter future.
It's one of the wonders of the national parks that, if you know about it and you get a chance to come out and see it, get out there and see it, because it's pretty magical.
George Solis, NBC News.
Instead of the northern lights, it's like the southern lights. All right, that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stay with us. The news continues right now. Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah will be back with us in just a moment. Right now on Morning News Now, trading blows. President Trump's tariff crusade hitting a major roadblock. A federal court now saying those sweeping levies on U.S. allies and adversaries are unconstitutional. That move more than welcome on Wall Street. The markets are soaring this morning, but what does it mean for your money, and could the ruling be reversed? We've got team coverage. Also this morning, despite that exploding measles outbreak across the country, lawmakers in hard-hit Texas making it easier for parents to apply for vaccine exemptions. So what could it mean for case counts there in the near future? We'll take a look. Plus, a viral splash of fear as we dive headfirst into summer. This mammoth-sized shark spotted off the coast of Rhode Island over the holiday weekend. So should beachgoers be on edge over another season of scary sightings? And don't call it a comeback. Later in the hour, the big-name band trading in those classic stadium sights and sounds for something that hits a little closer to home. Let's begin this hour with that federal court ruling that could set back President Trump's economic agenda. Last night, the U.S. Court of International Trade blocked most of Mr. Trump's sweeping trade tariffs. The panel of judges ruled that the president exceeded his authority by imposing the levies and ordered the Trump administration to stop collecting them. The White House now says it will appeal this decision. NBC News chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander has the latest.
Good morning to you. President Trump recently said the U.S. was like a giant department store where he was the one setting the prices. But overnight, a major blow to those plans. What is called the Court of International Trade abruptly halting the signature item on President Trump's economic agenda, those tariffs, ruling the president had overstepped his bounds.
Overnight, a federal court slamming the brakes on President Trump's sweeping tariffs.
It's our declaration of economic independence.
The U.S. Court of International Trade ruling that the president does not have the authority to impose those steep tariffs on allies or adversaries. The court, in two separate cases, tossing out the tariffs the president imposed under a nearly 50-year-old emergency economic law. that had never been invoked in a situation like this. The suits were filed by small businesses and a dozen states, arguing that President Trump violated the Constitution, which grants Congress, not the president, the authority to set tariffs. The administration already appealing, with a White House spokesperson arguing it is not for unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency. The ruling injecting new uncertainty into the president's on-again, off-again tariffs, with many businesses complaining his chaotic approach has made it impossible to plan their purchases ahead.
Thank you very much.
Hours before the ruling, the president took issue with accusations he's backed down on his tariff threats when asked about a new term reportedly used by some on Wall Street, taco, short for Trump always chickens out.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145%? I mean, you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation. You set a number. And if you go down, if I set a number at a ridiculous high number and I go down a little bit.
As the president battles the courts, one of his top allies, Elon Musk, confirms he's departing the administration, thanking President Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending while heading up the Department of Government Efficiency, coming just 2 days after Musk criticized President Trump's signature spending bill.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill.
Musk now faces a new challenge, trying to rehabilitate his image as a visionary entrepreneur after months of fierce political scrutiny.
As for that court ruling, the White House responded with a fury. One of the president's top advisors arguing it was an example of a, quote, judicial coup. But to be clear, that 3-judge panel that stopped the president in his tracks is made up of judges appointed by Reagan, Obama, and one by President Trump himself. Back to you.
All right, Peter, thank you so much. Let's get more analysis on this tariff ruling with NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans. A lot to cover here. We've been talking about tariffs all year. This is obviously a huge decision. First of all, financial markets, obviously, they're pleased with this, right?
Absolutely, because look, this is the biggest challenge to the president's tariff strategy that we've seen so far. And this is something that is effective in 10 days. I mean, the court gave the administration 10 days to wind down these most significant tariffs. And so it is broad-based. I mean, the verbs here that I'm using are canceled, void, block. I mean, it ends what was a signature part of the president's trade agenda, and now we wait to see what the White House does next.
Right, we would assume perhaps some sort of appeal process. So I guess that means things somewhat remain in limbo.
Right.
But if this sticks, do we have an idea, like when it comes to the prices people are paying, whether there's going to go up with tariffs or whether supplies are still short? What does this mean for prices?
The law of the land right now is that in 10 days, these tariffs have to come off. Now, these are not the steel and aluminum tariffs. That was a different authority the president used. So these are those big tariffs for fentanyl, against fentanyl. Remember, the president used that as an excuse, or as a reason, I should say, to put those tariffs on. And then also those reciprocal tariffs from April 2nd, that 145% tariff that then he put down to 30. So if you're a small business owner and you're trying to bring in supplies for the fall, right now you're calling your distributors and trying to figure out when you make that order and when you're going to get the best price.
When it comes to this decision and the impact of it, where could consumers see the biggest impact?
I think that this takes some pressure off the price story here for a lot of American consumers. I mean, we had talked about prices starting to rise after the back-to-school period and into the fall and the autumn. If indeed this holds, and I mean, this goes now to a federal circuit court, and then it could ultimately go to the Supreme Court. But this particular trade court, which just does trade, has found that the president was using an authority he does not have to put these tariffs on. Now, what could happen next is he tries to find another national security. The same way he put the steel and aluminum tariffs, he might try to use that authority, but that would take some time.
I think a lot of people are waking up this morning learning, oh, we have a trade court here in America. A lot of folks didn't know about this.
It's usually very boring, but today it is a big, big news.
It's a huge decision here. Remind us just over these last few weeks, how have consumers been responding to these tariffs? Because there's been this debate over whether prices go up, the pressure from the White House, if companies do raise those prices.
The biggest issue has been the on-again, off-again nature of these. I mean, certainty is what businesses need so that they can plan out for the next 6 months. So they know what they're going to charge consumers for something. So they know how much of an item they can produce and sell.
And that has been really hard to gauge over the past, since the beginning of April, really. And when you saw the president begin to pause some of these tariffs, you saw consumer sentiment, business sentiment improve a little bit. You know, so we're still in this very strange moment where there's still uncertainty, the legal uncertainty of what happens next. But this does, I think, take the pressure off of small businesses. And look, the people who are suing the White House in this and in front of this international trade court, this U.S. international trade court, they were small businesses and states who said that, you know, this was existential for them.
All right. Christine Romans, good to have you with us. Thank you. Former reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley are out of prison this morning after they were pardoned by President Trump. They walked out of prison yesterday, 3 years after being convicted in connection with a scheme to swindle banks out of tens of millions of dollars. NBC News senior Washington correspondent, News Now anchor Hallie Jackson has the latest.
Good morning to you. The stars of Chrisley Knows Best overnight out of prison and only beginning to settle into their newly granted freedom, all as President Trump issues a flurry of pardons, with some critics concerned about how he's using this sweeping executive power.
Former reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley free this morning after President Trump signed their full pardons. Their daughter, Savannah, posting videos from the car.
I've got Todd over here being dramatic.
I didn't have to deal with this in prison. Still am myself.
And earlier outside the prison, thanking the president.
It's all God and President Trump at this point.
Best known for their show Chrisley Knows Best.
We're the Chrisleys, Todd and Julie Chrisley.
The couple was indicted in 2019 during the first Trump administration on tax crimes and convicted by a jury in 2022 for defrauding banks out of more than $30 million.
There are hundreds of cases around the country where people are wrongfully convicted, and the juries don't always get things right.
But Savannah Chrisley, a Trump supporter, has been lobbying for their release, appearing at last year's Republican National Convention and on Laura Trump's TV show. Top Democrat Elizabeth Warren calling the pardon a get-out-of-jail-free card for the rich and famous who cozy up to Trump. The Chrisleys, just two of a number of people pardoned by the president. Though all were legally convicted, some, like the Chrisleys, argue they are victims of political persecution, including former Republican congressman turned conservative cable commentator Michael Grimm, who pleaded guilty to tax fraud.
I will make it official with a badge.
And earlier this week, President Trump pardoning Scott Jenkins, a former Virginia sheriff who was found guilty by a jury of receiving more than $75,000 in bribes. That pardon, supported by the president's new pardon attorney, who tweeted, quote, "No MAGA left behind." Now, President Trump's hinting at another possible high-profile pardon for 9 men convicted in a 2020 kidnapping plot of Michigan's Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
It looked to me like somewhat of a railroad job, but I'll take a look at that.
No comment from Governor Whitmer's office on that. As for the Chrisleys, it sounds like we will see them back on reality TV. Their daughter says they have a new show coming out that's documenting their lives, including these latest developments. Back to you.
All right, Hallie. It's graduation day for more than 1,900 students at Harvard University, but this year, commencement for the class of 2025 is happening in the shadow of that unprecedented legal battle with President Trump. Shortly after today's ceremonies begin, Harvard's attorneys and the Department of Homeland Security are set to face off at a hearing over the Trump administration's attempt to strip the school of its ability to enroll students from overseas. Now, even though a judge has temporarily blocked that move, the head of Harvard's Immigration Services said in a court filing that some students are, quote, afraid to attend their own graduation ceremonies. NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton joins us now from Cambridge, Massachusetts with the latest. Antonia, first of all, just what is expected to happen at this hearing today?
Good morning, Joe. Well, in this Boston federal courtroom, we're going to hear from both sides in this case, and they are going to meet face to face for the very first time. We expect Harvard to lay out an argument that we already have a pretty good sense of because they've submitted filings and they've made their position in recent days quite clear. They're going to argue that this is all about political retribution coming from the Trump administration. They are very likely going to bring up remarks that the president has made on Truth Social and elsewhere, for example, referring to people here on the campus as bird brains, accusing people of all kinds of things, labeling the school as anti-American. Secretary Noem saying that Harvard has associations with the Chinese Communist Party, and argue that this is really about a sort of ideological and political conflict, and not about what the Trump administration has argued for weeks here, which is that they have concerns about anti-Semitism on campus, that they have concerns about violence and protests that happened last year on campus. And both sides are going to go sort of toe-to-toe in front of each other. And then there's a possibility the judge could rule from the bench. But we could also be in a situation, Joe, where we're waiting for a couple days to see what kind of action the judge chooses to take. What Harvard is, of course, hoping here is that the restraining order stays in place, ultimately, Joe.
So, Antonia, outside of the courtroom, we've just seen this fight between Harvard and the president escalate day after day, even more so over the past couple of days. Talk about how the president might be shifting his strategy here.
Well, President Trump has in some ways, I think, struggled at times, Joe, to actually stay with what the administration's official strategy is. The official strategy is this is a school that has allowed anti-Semitism to fester. They have not introduced specific cases or names or incidents as they've made that argument. It's sort of been a broad picture of campus life that they've tried to paint. They've tried to say that the president and other leaders at the university haven't done enough work to protect Jewish students here. And that's sort of the argument, that there's a civil rights violation on the campus, and that's why they need to work with this administration to make changes. But he has strayed at many points in his comments, again, sort of making very direct and personal attacks at times on social media that will, according to the experts I've spoken to, potentially undermine him in court. Take a listen to some of President Trump's remarks.
Harvard has to understand the last thing I want to do is hurt them. They're hurting themselves. They're fighting. You know, Columbia has been really, they were very, very bad what they've done. They're very anti-Semitic and lots of other things. But they're working with us on finding a solution. And, you know, they're taking off that hot seat. But Harvard wants to fight. They want to show how smart they are. And they're getting their kicked.
And, you know, to be clear, Joe, you're hearing him there make this comparison to Columbia University, which agreed to most of the Trump administration's demands. They've faced immense criticism, even, frankly, shame from other universities, faculty members around the country since that happened. And so for Harvard, most of the people here who hear the president make those remarks, they actually see that as a badge of honor. They want to be seen as taking a very different strategy from that other school, Joe. Yeah,
and amid all this, as we mentioned, graduation day there, that's a milestone students work so hard to get to, especially if you went to Harvard. Talk about the feeling among students there getting set to graduate.
You know what's interesting, Joe? I was here last week, and I would say that last week the feeling was fear, anxiety. That's sort of what prevailed around campus. Today, though, there is immense excitement, not just because people are celebrating their graduation day, but because actually various factions with very different political and foreign policy views here have come together because they believe there is an existential threat against them here at the university. I had a chance to speak with a senior right before he processed into the yard behind me here to get ready for his graduation. Take a listen to some of our conversation.
We are all obviously celebrating our own achievements today for our 4 years, but I think that Trump's threat against Harvard are truly hanging over this, because without the international students, Harvard is not Harvard anymore. And, you know, we might be the last international class in a while. When people come back next semester, there might not be any international students left. I have friends who are back home and are truly panicking right now.
Expect to hear cheers throughout the day here. People have been giving President Alan Garber here at Harvard standing ovations because they see him as sort of the last line of defense. And so today is about graduation, but it's also about celebrating what Harvard means and what they hope it continues to mean to this community and to the world, Joe.
All right, Antonia, thank you so much. Let's head to northern Arkansas now, where the manhunt for an escaped killer now enters its 5th day. Search efforts for Grant Harden have been hampered by rain and difficult terrain in the area. The former police chief was serving time for convictions on rape and murder charges before he escaped. NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar has been following this story and joins us with the latest. Priya, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Authorities say there are plenty of places to hide out here in the Ozark Mountains, spaces that are not only off the grid, but beneath it. There are hundreds of caves around here that lead to a vast network of underground space. Perfect, really, if you're a fugitive in hiding. But they say they also have hundreds of law enforcement personnel from multiple agencies on the ground here, working around the clock, deploying drones and dogs, and really scouring this dense and rugged terrain. This morning in Calico Rock, Arkansas, police checkpoints and heavy surveillance are in place in an all-hands effort to recapture an extremely dangerous escaped killer, Grant Hardin. The 56-year-old former police chief has been serving a lengthy prison sentence for murder and rape. Residents in the area taking precautions.
I just shut the windows and doors and let the pistol out on the coffee table.
Officials say they've expanded the search area with several agencies working around the clock, deploying search dogs and drones to scour this dense and rugged terrain.
There's a lot of vegetation, there's a lot of forests.
Rand Champion is with the Arkansas Department of Corrections.
There's plenty of hiding places. There are a number of abandoned, units, barns and sheds and homes and cars.
Police say Hardin managed to escape in a makeshift outfit designed to look like a corrections officer uniform. According to an affidavit, the disguise convinced a guard to open the gate and let him walk out. Officials in Louisiana say they're making progress tracking down the last two men who broke out of a New Orleans jail nearly 2 weeks ago. Domestic abuse suspect Antoine T. Massey and four-time convicted killer Derek Groves are still at large.
They're both considered armed and dangerous, but we're very close, and that circle is tightening very, very quickly.
New Orleans authorities have arrested a total of 14 people in connection with the mass jailbreak and re-arrested 8 of the 10 men who escaped. Back here in Arkansas, tips and unsubstantiated rumors about Hardin have been pouring in, including the theory he may have floated away down this river. But authorities say there have been no confirmed sightings so far.
I think he didn't get away. I think he is around here somewhere, and they'll probably find him.
Now, officials say they were able to detect that Hardin was missing from the detention facility within 30 minutes of his escape. But despite that, the rain that day and in the following days really hindered their search efforts in finding him quickly. Joe?
All right, Priya, thank you so much. Memorial Day is now behind us. That means many families are looking forward to a summer filled with trips to the beach. But a shark sighting off the coast of Rhode Island is leading to some new worries. Just weeks away from the 50th anniversary of the movie Jaws, this might have hit a little too close to home. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock joins us with more on this unusual shark sighting. Sam, good morning.
Yeah, Joe, good morning. I definitely think that it hit a little close to home. Jen Seebeck has lived on Block Island for more than 20 years and had never seen a shark there before until now. Given the size about 20 feet and that large dorsal fin, many assume that had to be a white shark or a great white shark, right? It's also the beginning of the migration season for white sharks, but it turned out to be one of the biggest basking sharks you will ever see. That is, we are also seeing a new development from North Carolina, a run in there with a surfer that appears to be with a shark.
It's already shark season. This morning, yet another beach community on edge after a suspected shark attack off the coast of North Carolina. 26-year-old Sean Barton was in the ocean when he says he suddenly felt an intense pain.
Just got done riding an epic wave and then felt a shark or something bite my leg. And at that moment, I was like, I think I just got bit by a shark.
Family members adding they saw a shark swimming close by after the bite. Barton ending up with 11 stitches in his leg. It comes in the wake of another shocking sighting when a mammoth-sized shark popped up in Rhode Island.
There's a shark in the pond.
Jen Seebeck was grabbing a bite to eat.
So you were perched on that deck?
Yes, sir.
Right out in the water over your shoulder, that's where you saw the shark?
Yeah.
Mere weeks from the 50th anniversary of the iconic movie, Jaws.
That's a 20-footer.
And thoughts, naturally, ran to the famous fictional sighting.
There was lots of speculation of what type of shark it was.
At the Atlantic Shark Institute, marine scientists soon provided more clarity on a video that's already been viewed more than 10 million times.
It's a basking shark. So it looks a lot like a white shark. Big dorsal fin, dark on the top, shape is very similar. Huge difference in diet.
Executive Director John Dodd says this is the beginning of white shark migration season, and while some are tagged by scientists for research, it's hardly a reliable resource.
They need to understand that the majority of sharks have not been tagged. That could have been the 5th shark that swam through that morning, and the other 4 weren't tagged. And nobody was told to get out of the water because you simply don't know that they're there.
The incident coming on the heels of an actual white shark sighting off the coast of Montauk a couple of weeks ago, seen here in stunning aerial footage. That follows a recent run-in on the Florida Panhandle.
You're fine, it's right here,
Where a swimmer was startled by a shark, setting the stage for likely another summer of shark scares.
So, Sam, with all the excitement around the anniversary of Jaws, we want to make sure we're not overhyping anything. So what do we actually know about the recent trends of shark incidents?
Sure. So the reality, Joe, is that if you look at all these shark attacks, we have so much coverage of it, you might think incidents are up. According to the International Shark Attack File, there were 47 unprovoked bites. That's about in line with the 5-year average. This was in 2024. What's interesting is that researchers have absolutely recorded more incidents involving new species here in the Northeast, like spinner sharks and black tip sharks. You think about everything that's happened on Long Island the last couple of years. There may be a function of changing water conditions, changing climate, but it's only been a couple of years so far, Joe, so we'll have to see.
All right, Sam, thanks so much. A rainy and overcast day here in New York. Let's get to your weather. Meteorologist Angie Lastman has the forecast. Angie, good morning.
Hi, Joe. Good morning to you. Yes, rainy and kind of soggy in a couple of spots across the country, and it's all part of this one storm system that's also leaving us with kind of two different temperature trends that we're dealing with across the country. So if you look from the Rockies to the Atlantic, it's unseasonably cool. We've got some of this chillier air coming in down from parts of parts of Canada. You can see right around that area of low pressure, and it's leaving us with the clouds, with the rain, and the cooler than normal temperatures for the next couple of days. Notice places like St. Louis, 68 degrees. That's all you're going to get today. And that temperature about more than 10 degrees below where we should be for this time of year. We do get back to the upper 70s tomorrow in a lot of spots across the Midwest, Wichita, Little Rock, St. Louis included in that. As far as farther east, notice the mid 70s today in Cincinnati, back down to those low 70s for tomorrow, and kind of sticking into the upper 70s for Washington, D.C. So a bit of a mixed bag, but running cooler than normal. A very different story as we look out west, where we've got a high pressure system. It's kind of taken hold of areas from the Rockies to the Pacific. We've got high temperatures running 10 to even 25 degrees above normal for this time of year, and potential records to be set as we go through the next couple of days, specifically Friday to Sunday. Notice all the locations across the west that could see those record highs being dropped. Sacramento, we've got Redding, we've got Baker City, Salt Lake City, all included in that. And already we're looking at the potential for heat advisories and heat warnings because of those temperatures. Where will those temperatures land? Well, it looks like over the next couple of days, we'll see upper 70s ending up for Los Angeles. We end up into the mid 80s as we get through Friday. We head to the upper 90s for Las Vegas, Joe, but end up into the triple digits by Saturday.
All right. Sounds good, Angie. Thank you so much. Even though the nation's measles outbreak is still growing, lawmakers at the epicenter in Texas have now passed new legislation that could impact efforts to vaccinate against the disease. So far, there have been more than 1,000 cases this year nationwide, the second biggest number since measles was considered eliminated back in 2000. More than 700 of those cases were reported in Texas, where 3 people have already died from the disease. 2 of them were unvaccinated kids. With vaccination rates for measles on the decline, the Texas legislature just passed a controversial new law making it easier for parents to apply for exemptions. NBC's Ann Thompson is following this and is here to break down the details. So I think logic would tell you typically if you're dealing with something like this, you would not want to make exemptions easier. For those who are pushing this legislation, what's their argument? Why are they doing it?
They would tell you this legislation is about a form, not about vaccine exemptions. And the argument is this. Currently in Texas, if you want to get a vaccine exemption form, you have to write in or fax in or go online and apply for a form, and then it's sent to you. The whole process can take 3 weeks. Under this legislation, you'll be able to download that form, so it'll be much easier. You still have to fill it out. You still have to get it notarized. You still have to take it to a school. But proponents of this bill say it will save the state some $600,000. Obviously, Opponents of the bill say if you make it easier, it will continue to drive down vaccination rates. But I talked to Rebecca Hardy of Texans for Vaccine Choice, and she said, look, we have been working on this for a decade. Parents' rights are not conditional on what illness is circulating in the air. This is about parental rights.
So on what basis can someone get an exemption?
So you have basically two bases. One is a medical requirement or request from your doctor, but you also have examples of conscience or reasons of conscience, including religious beliefs. And in Texas, you can opt out of some of the childhood vaccines or all of them. So you need a form to do that, and you need a form for each child.
All right, we know the measles outbreak is still an issue, especially in West Texas. Last month, we talked about how the CDC sent a task force there to try and help out. Do we have an update? How are things going there?
It is waning. Now, whether that is due to the CDC's efforts, certainly the State Department of Health has worked very, very hard on this as well. But it is waning, and that's the good news. It will be interesting to see if this form is signed into law and what happens next year. Will you see another uptick?
Especially as students return to school after the summer and all of that.
Yes.
All right. Ann, thank you so much. Appreciate your reporting. We've got much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the new round of peace talks between officials from Russia and Ukraine slated for next week in Turkey. First, after the break, China hitting back against the Trump administration after it pledged to revoke visas of Chinese students studying here in America. More on that up next. We are back with new developments in the growing rift between China and the U.S. This morning, China is responding to that major announcement from Secretary of State Marco Rubio that the U.S. plans to revoke visas issued to Chinese students studying here. NBC News correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer has the latest from Beijing.
It's a huge blow for thousands of Chinese students, as well as a sign that despite that ceasefire of sorts on tariffs, relations between the U.S. and China could be unraveling. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the State Department will aggressively revoke the visas of Chinese students in the U.S. and increase security for Chinese students trying to get their visas, including those, he said, with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. The Department of Homeland Security is revising visa criteria for all international students. This was an order that went to all U.S. embassies globally. But here in Beijing, embassy staff were told to stop taking applications for new visa appointments. Chinese officials responding today saying they lodged a diplomatic protest, calling the move unreasonable and accusing the U.S. of targeting China. Students we've talked to here are fearful, and it's no small detail that Xi Jinping's daughter went to Harvard under a pseudonym. With more than 275,000 Chinese students in the U.S., there is a ripple effect here, not just universities losing revenue, but the wider economy. According to the Association of International Educators, more than 1.1 million international students contributed nearly $44 billion to the economy in the 2023-24 school year, and a good chunk of that was in California. This could also complicate trade talks with China and send anxiety rippling across university campuses in the U.S.
All right, Janice, thank you. Russia and Ukraine could resume peace talks as early as Monday if Moscow comes through with its terms.
NBC's Matt Bodner joins us with that and other world headlines. Hey, Matt, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Delegations representing Russia and Ukraine will meet in Istanbul on Monday for a second round of peace talks. That is, if the Kremlin makes good on its pledge to produce a memorandum outlining terms of a potential ceasefire and ultimately a peace agreement. The two sides last met on Monday, May 16th, and agreed to both present outlines detailing their conditions for broader negotiations to end the war. Ukraine says it's already sent Russia its terms for the talks, that it's now waiting for Russia to send theirs. Ukraine has repeatedly said it's ready for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. Russia wants more talks on the details, saying that any settlement must address the, quote, root causes of the conflict. And that's Kremlin speak for saying any agreement we make must give us what we've always wanted. Moving along now to Switzerland, a massive landslide comprised of rock and ice rolled down an alpine mountainside yesterday, sending plumes of dust into the air and blanketing most of a local village in mud. This is actually the same village we covered last week, where the cow was airlifted by helicopter in the face of a looming landslide warning. Local police say a 64-year-old resident of the village, which was also evacuated, is missing at this time. The village, according to officials, is 90% covered in mud or otherwise destroyed. And we'll wrap up this hour in Brazil, where two nuns have gone viral for an impromptu beatbox performance during a Catholic television program. Take a listen to this. Our sisters Marizel Cassiano and Marissa De Paula, the two were talking about a vocational retreat on this television channel called Eternal Father when they mentioned a song that talks about the call to religious life. They then started beatboxing and dancing. They drew the host in as well. This clip obviously going massively viral with millions in Brazil and abroad watching and sharing the act. Back to you guys.
Okay, it's so good. I could watch this video over and over again. On the Today Show, I think it was yesterday, Carson Daly said none DMC.
None DMC, I like that. We are due for a new Sister Act movie, so I think we've got our stars right there. It's the dancing that puts it over the top. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Love it.
Thanks, guys.
Coming up, critical court decisions passed down to the public with AI.
After the break, how Arizona's Supreme Court is using the controversial new tech and the ethical concerns surrounding it all. We'll be right back.
We are back with dramatic video of a police chase in Miami. We must warn you, some of the footage may be disturbing to watch. A police officer can be seen clinging to the hood of a man's moving car while firing a gun through his windshield. That driver's sister, who was in the car with him, is now speaking out as police investigate what happened. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch has the latest.
This video shows the chaotic moments a police officer opens fire on the hood of a car in the heart of downtown Miami. Then this man bolts from behind the wheel, raises his hands, and surrenders to police, his back apparently bloodied. According to Miami police, the officer was directing traffic Sunday when he was struck by a vehicle. Investigators say the officer then discharged his firearm, striking the driver.
It happened really fast.
Cheryl Ann Clark telling our Miami NBC station that her brother was behind the wheel of that car Sunday night.
We were all stopped. We were in the middle lane. He told everyone else to go with his hand signaling that we can go. And then he stood in front of my brother's car and shot him. The only one that was firing the gun was the officer. My brother does not have a weapon on him.
Police say both the driver and the officer were taken to the hospital.
This is the intersection where police say this incident unfolded. You can see a good amount of traffic in the area during the evening commute. And right over here is a waterfront park, which was hosting a concert on Sunday.
I heard 3 shots, pow, pow, pow.
Okay, and then what?
And then we was walking to leave, and the cop said, you can't go this way. And I said, why? He said, it was a crime scene.
The video appearing to start after the incident began. The full picture remains unclear.
We don't know exactly what happened. We do know that there was physical contact between the officer and the vehicle.
Jesse Kirsch, NBC News.
In Arizona, the state Supreme Court there is now using artificial intelligence to let people know about its decisions. Computer-generated correspondents are now delivering reports on the court's decisions. Some people say their new digital co-workers are alarmingly convincing. NBC News Now anchor Gotti Schwartz has the details.
Okay, TikTok. Impression time.
In a world full of deep fakes,
It's Taylor Swift here.
Hold on just a second. There's a big fire.
what happens when the face of your official source of information isn't human, it's AI?
The Arizona Supreme Court has...
Meet Victoria and Daniel, the official AI avatars for the Arizona Supreme Court.
Hey there, I'm Victoria, one of the Arizona Supreme Court's new AI-generated court news reporters.
Why? Why are you doing this?
Why? I think it's just an efficient way for us to get news out.
Alberto Rodriguez is a public information officer for the court that helped design his digital co-workers.
So traditional production obviously takes quite amount of manpower.
And how much time does it take for Victoria to do it here?
It takes minutes.
I gotta admit, when she says, I'm Victoria, a news reporter, like my human feelings get hurt as a news reporter.
Yeah.
Do you see this ever replacing like news reporters?
I don't think so.
Arizona's Chief Justice Ann Timmer says it's important to note that everything you hear the avatars say is actually written by the justices themselves.
For years, we took it for granted that of course you trust the courts, of course you trust judges. We're doing our best, but if people don't believe that, it doesn't matter.
However, there are a lot of people out there that don't trust AI.
That's true, but they have to remember this AI, at least that we're using, it's not generative.
The justices said that even if she didn't mean to violate the rules, her act.
And while the avatars might become the most forward-facing example of AI in the legal system, Justice Timmer points out the law profession is already using AI every day for things like research to document review and analysis.
I come here today a humble pro se before a panel.
One plaintiff in New York even trying to use AI to argue his case before a skeptical appeals panel.
Shut that off!
But with more AI come concerns over instances of AI models citing cases that never existed and potential bias and discrimination that's often found when tapping into large data sets.
I don't see if what your concern is, that, which is a valid one, that will use AI to start substituting for judgment. I don't think that will ever happen.
All ethical concerns in a new era that could end up before Arizona's high courts, decided by human justices, but disseminated by something else. Gotti Schwartz, NBC News, Phoenix, Arizona.
That is a talker.
Lots of AI headlines this morning. Is it real? Is it not? All right, coming up, the official start of summer might still be a few weeks away.
But sizzling temperatures in parts of the country already have some Americans feeling the burn. So how can you keep cool without racking up a pricey electric bill this season? We're watching your wallet next.
Welcome back. The summer season is just a few weeks away, and in some places, the hot temperatures are already here. That means running your air conditioner in your home for longer periods of time. So how can you beat that heat and also keep those cooling costs down? NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson joins us now from Houston, a place that knows heat pretty well. She has more on this. Priscilla, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Yeah, we do know heat really well here, and this is the time of year when the bill can skyrocket, even more so this year than last year. But the good news is there are some small changes that folks can make to help save a lot of money.
With a summer heat wave and rising electrical bill costs expected to get even higher, Americans are feeling the burn.
I'm baking like a toasted cheese here. It's so hot here.
A new report predicting global temperatures to carry on at near record levels in the next 5 years, finding an 80% chance the world will be hotter than its previous milestone set just last year.
Be ready to sweat as soon as you walk out.
Already across the country, forecasters are predicting above average conditions between June and August.
In terms of heat, what are you expecting this summer?
To be really hot, to stay in the house.
And as more people start to blast their AC to cool off, HVAC companies are bumping prices to offset higher supply chain costs due in part to tariffs. The average household electricity costs could jump to $784 this summer, the highest in over a decade, up 6% from last year.
I'm used to paying maybe at the most like $120, and it's already at $140.
Across social media, people are feeling the heat from steep cost.
This is the amount of money that we owed for that new AC.
This year might be the year that HVAC becomes a luxury.
Aiden Mayer manages a heating and cooling company in Denver.
Over 70% of what was consumed here in the HVAC industry, heating and cooling, was imported from overseas. The steel, the aluminum, the copper, the bare bones of the systems.
But despite high prices, he says the demand for these systems isn't even breaking a sweat.
Summers are just getting hotter. These have become essential products that unfortunately are very sensitive to supply chain and tariffs.
And Joe, I did promise some tips for keeping that bill low, so let's get into it. Number one, use the windows. Open your windows early in the morning, around dusk, and get some of that cool air flowing in for free. Number two, blackout curtains. They are not just good for the days that you want to sleep in, but they also can help keep your home up to 8 degrees cooler. Also, maybe look into getting a smart thermostat. That way that you can manage the temperature even when you're not at home. And the most important important thing is changing your air filter. They are supposed to be changed about every 3 months. I have got an air filter right here. I'm going to go home after this show and get mine changed and get ready for summer.
That
Joe?
filter is bigger than you, Priscilla.
Yes.
That is a very large filter. It will catch all of the things.
I have a big AC, Joe, and I run it often.
You do live in Texas, and things are bigger in Texas. All right, Priscilla, thank you so much.
Every 3 months. That's a good reminder. I got to check mine. All right, let's get you some money news. Apple is reportedly making changes to the way it names its software updates.
CNBC's Savannah Henao joins us with that and some other money headlines. Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Savannah. Good morning to you. Well, Apple is going to rename its next set of operating systems to align with years instead of a version number. That means the next iOS update coming later this year will be iOS 26 instead of iOS 19. And it's similar to how car models are based on the year after they're launched. Now, Bloomberg reports Apple will officially announce the change at its Worldwide Developers Conference next month. And the idea is to make the software numbers more consistent. All right, Jeep and Chrysler maker Stellantis is shifting to Google's Android for its in-car software as a partnership with Amazon ends. The automaker announced the Amazon deal 3 years ago, but it never happened. And Reuters reports Amazon staff working on the project have left the company or been reassigned. Stellantis confirming the report to TechCrunch. It will continue to use Amazon Web Services as its main cloud provider, and Alexa will still be available in vehicles. And Mike White is trading in his luxury resort drama of The White Lotus for the Tribal Council of Survivor. The Emmy Award-winning creator of the hit HBO show is returning to the CBS reality competition for its 50th season. White finished in second place during season 37, which helped launch him to Hollywood stardom. The latest Survivor cast includes contestants from 19 different seasons. Season 50 is expected to air next year, guys.
We have gasps happening in the studio.
Yeah.
Jillian, our stage manager, is very excited. That is pretty cool.
What would be great is if it were like the cast of The White Lotus were with the island.
Can you imagine?
Jennifer Coolidge and Parker Posey.
That would be a drama.
Yeah.
Holy moly. That's a great idea for them. I'm sure they're trying. All right, Savannah, thank you. Sure. Well, what's old is new again. Amid the ongoing trade war and looming price hikes, some consumers are thinking twice about buying retail and are turning to thrifting for more affordable options. In the last year alone, the secondhand market has exploded in popularity. People are turning to thrifting for everything from clothing to furniture at their local consignment store and also online. So I headed to a local thrift shop here in New York to see firsthand what kind of good deals can be found.
A growing number of consumers are feeling the pinch when they shop, saying the sticker shock is getting out of hand.
Why are they pricing underwear like you wear them on the outside of your clothes?
Soaring prices, renewing interest in secondhand shopping.
I got this for $6.50. No way.
For some, getting thrifty means saving money without sacrificing quality or style. According to a recent report by Capital One Shopping Research, 93% of Americans bargain hunt online for secondhand items, while 1/3 of all clothes and apparel purchased last year were secondhand. And get this, thrift store shoppers save a whopping $1,760 per year.
I think you have to do it just to try to save some money.
And it's not just snagging must-have fashion finds or secondhand sporting goods, but furniture, toys, and so much more can be found at resale stores and websites for a fraction of the cost. One report predicting sales from the global secondhand products market to rise 17% over the next 10 years, reaching an estimated value of more than $1 trillion. Another driving force, the potential impact of tariffs on the global economy. A 2025 study by online thrift and consignment giant ThredUp found that nearly 7 in 10 millennials and more than half of shoppers overall plan to find more affordable options if government policies make clothing more expensive. The luxury consignment site The RealReal has already seen revenue bumps in its first quarter, writing, "We source our supply primarily from domestic closets, so there is potential to realize benefits in the current environment."
We go as low as like $9, but like all the way up to $300, $400, $500.
Keiichi Onimo manages Beacon's Closet in Manhattan, a secondhand shop that offers everything from store brands to designer wear.
What have you been seeing people gravitating towards?
A lot of people have been buying a lot of our cowboy boots because of Cowboy Carter.
I imagine also, though, a lot of everyday people who this is where they're mainly getting their fashion.
Yeah, stuff for work. We see anything and everything.
I'm seeing so many things in here that are
like designer pieces that would be hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars that are like 30, 40, 50 bucks.
Yeah. It's just way easier. The Catherine Malandrino Y2K, which fits amazing.
Oh my gosh, for $39. Wow.
Yeah.
So why not build a look of my own while I'm here?
I obviously have to go shopping. Let's take a look and see what we can find.
My budget? $35.
Okay, this is Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop label for $35. Are you kidding me?
I scoured the racks.
Okay, that's kind of fun.
Tried a few things on. Let's see.
So many great options. Now I just have to decide, what am I going to wear on the show tomorrow? All right, outfit reveal. As you can see, I went with the Goop label red romper. Okay, so there you heard it's 35 bucks. It was originally going for more than $500. Another reason secondhand shopping is so popular, a lot of environmental friendly shoppers don't want to contribute to this growing fashion waste problem. Because get this, one report by Boston University found that Americans throw out more than 34 billion pounds of textiles every year, and 2/3 are sent to landfills where they decompose. So you save some money, maybe even help save the planet. Secondhand shopping, many benefits. I know you guys, furniture, antiques, like you guys like.
Oh, yeah. So many, exactly. So many things that decorate our home.
Yeah, exactly.
Clothes I have never gotten into.
It's kind of tough because, like, you really got to look, and it's like every single piece is different, so you feel like you can leave no stone unturned, you know what I mean? But it's really cool, and that shop is amazing.
And that is some great money you see.
Right? Can you believe that?
I'm looking sharp.
I'm not good at math to tell you the percent discount, but it's a lot off.
More than 10. All right.
Coming up, the storied house party is making quite the comeback this morning.
When Morning News Now returns, the big name band that's bringing all the nostalgic noise to humble backyards across the country, much to the delight of fans. That is next. Stick around. Finally this hour, the house party is back with a big-name band from the 2000s leading the way.
NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber shows us how the All-American Rejects are taking their show from concert stages to fans' backyards.
On the big screen, it was an all-American rite of passage. The glory days of house parties in the 90s and early aughts. If the All-American Rejects have anything to say about it, the house party is back.
We're playing in the middle of nowhere. We're coming to Columbia, Missouri. We are playing at a bowling alley.
The band popping up at that bowling alley, a barn in Iowa and near college campuses like USC and Mizzou. The cops shut down one of them.
Sorry, y'all. We just got kicked off campus.
But let the band play one final song.
We got one more song! I wake up every evening with a big smile on my face. We wanted to get back to the spirit of what started this band.
When people come to this show, what do you hope they take away from the experience?
I hope it makes them excited to go to a show again and see it's possible to see something without having to pay exorbitant amounts of money.
This thing got bigger than our band. Like, this thing became something, I guess, in the last week that spoke to people and hit a nerve. We're going to keep these house party tours rolling through the summer and see who all shows up.
Maybe it's a case of old habits die hard. Or maybe it's the deep breath so many of us desperately need. A subtle reminder of what it feels like to be young and unafraid and scream sing with unbridled joy. Ellison Barber, NBC News.
I could so see Ellison rocking out,
yes, she would definitely be doing that. What band would you want from 20 years ago?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about like who I was like, maybe like the Fray. I'm going to see them here soon. You know, doesn't that seem like that could be like a good backyard vibe?
I could totally see that.
Yeah? What about you?
I could think like a Modest Mouse. Or there's a band I like that no one knew about called Stroke 9 back in the day. They were like my favorite band, so I could see that. Or just Cher. If Cher wants to come to my backyard and sing.
Oh, that would be,
anytime,
I don't know, it's not glamorous enough. You know?
We'll make it. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.